Welcome, guys, to the first lesson for the learning approach for Psychology 9990, which is AS and A-level psychology. Now, with each of the four approaches, there are going to be three core studies for each approach. For the learning approach, there's going to be three social approach, three biological approach, three, so on. And for each of the approaches, there are certain assumptions, normally about 2 to 3 assumptions, and they're going to be commonly tested on tests. So you should memorize each of these assumptions. And for each of the core studies that you study, you will also need to reference these assumptions. So it's pretty important. But it's also not a lot of content. This is going to be a very short video, just a very brief introduction into what is the learning approach. All right, let's get started. So this isn't important. You don't need to know this definition for the test, but I just want to give you a brief overview of what is learning. So learning, by definition, is just an interaction with the environment which changes behavior. And well, this might sound a little confusing, but just understand it this way. In order to gain some sort of, for example, if you want to do math, doing math is a type of behavior. You define that as a type of behavior. And how do you get new math skills? Well, you interact by doing practice problems, right? Practice problems are the environment. So through interactions with the environment, through practicing, through facing new challenges, through interaction with other people, we gain and change our behavior. So that is what is learning. And with that in mind, let's take a look at the assumptions of the learning approach. So there are three main assumptions of the learning approach. And I really dislike calling these assumptions because I feel like they are more of the types of learning. So instead of thinking of them as assumptions, think of them, when you see assumptions of learning approach, just think, what are the types of learning? And we classify at the AS level learning into three types. There are three types of learning, which is the assumptions of the learning approach. First of all, it is called social learning theory, or just social learning is fine as well. And what social learning is that we learn new behavior by observing others' behavior, which is what I just said, interaction with other people. For example, if you take a look at a person, you like a role model. For example, I really like Michael Jordan, who plays in the NBA. I might want to copy his mentality, or I want to learn his fadeaway shot, learn how he shoots the basketball, so on like that. We learn or we gain behavior through observing other people's behavior and to replicate them. And this is in the Bandura study, which you will learn later on. For those who are using this for review, you should already know about the Bandura study, so this should make sense. But for those that haven't, just ignore this and go look at the Bandura study and then come back to this one. But this is just broad memorization. How they will test you on the external exams is that they will ask you to state and explain the assumptions of the learning approach, giving examples. So it will be probably a 6-mark question asking you to give 2 assumptions, or it's going to be a 6-mark question asking you to give 3 assumptions. So how do you answer each of these, we will discuss later. But the second one is the classical conditioning. It's the second type of learning. And what is classical conditioning is basically think about association. So what's association? The most classic example is Pavlov's dog, which you might have heard of, which is a dog associates the ringing of a bell with food, because every time a bell rings, let's say the experimenter gives the dog some food. And it associates this ring of bell with food so that when the experiment just rings the bell but does not give the dog food, the dog will still salivate because they think that food will be given to it. And that is association. Operant conditioning is the most simple one, in my opinion. It's simply just learning through consequences. For example, hitting. Punishments and rewards are consequences. You motivate people through rewards, and you dismotivate people through punishments. For example, laws and going to jail and punishments against crimes are what stops and disincentivize crimes from happening. That's also will help people learn. These are the 3 types of learning. So how do you answer the 2 types of questions on external exams? Sometimes they'll ask you to give examples. So you will just say the first assumption is social learning theory. That's the first assumption. Just give a very brief 3-word answer. Just people learn through learning, social learning. People learn through social learning. People learn through classical conditioning. That's your first point. And then give an example. They'll ask you to give an example. For example, give an example of the Bandura study or the Pavlov law for the classical conditioning. If it's a 3-mark question, you have to explain what is social learning. And for example, you first say that people learn through social learning. And social learning is the learning through observation of others' behavior. And then you give an example. So that's the 3-mark question. Okay, so actually, I think that's all for the assumptions of the learning approach. It's just complete memorization, but it's also pretty easy to memorize. Just 3 types of learning and memorizing an example for each type and understand how each type works. All right, that's it. See you next time, and please subscribe